Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining me, Dorothea, on Through an Orthodox Christian Lens. It is September 2025. I have a guest again here, my son, Nicholas, Nico. He's going to be talking with me on this episode, which has to do with the Kirk assassination case. Some more things to talk about that are strange. So, I'm going to bring up something and then we're going to discuss it after we get it up there. Okay. It's Kim's show. I want to share something with you on that. So let me just pull this a little bit so we're a little bit bigger. Okay. She's talking about a lot of issues that everybody else is talking about, which is about the gun, about the suspect on the roof, the regular issues that we've talked about, the towel, where the weapon was left. So I'm just going to go and play this portion, and then I'm going to stop it intermittently because there's things I want to say about it. But this portion she's talking here, I'm going to bring it up now.
Things are just not adding up. Let me give you an example. This is Kash Patel being questioned about the gun. Now, one of the biggest things that's not adding up is we still haven't seen any imagery of Tyler Robinson with the gun. They're saying that there's been different theories of how he got the gun to the roof and how he got the gun off of the roof, but we've actually never seen any real images of him with the gun. There's him jumping, what looks like him jumping off the roof, allegedly him jumping off the roof. Maybe it was him. And it does look like he's holding something, but it looks floppy. It looks like it's just the towel and not actually the gun itself, which would be a rigid, large object. But this is what Kash Patel had to say when he was questioned.
Okay, so I want to say something on this flimsy or floppy understanding of the gun. So I actually have a video on that. Let me see if I can move this down a little bit. Uh, where was that? Can't see now. Okay. I'm just going to replay this so people understand this part that she's talking about and how it looks. She's saying it looks like it's floppy, the towel or whatever that's supposed to be in the towel. So I'm going to play that. Don't need the sound for this, but I played this video yesterday. Okay. Carrying it. So
Oh, wait,
what is that?
wait a minute. Wait, hold on. I'm sorry. I got to interrupt here. Why is there no shadow of him on the roof, but there's a shadow of him on the ground? You would think it would stand out against that white. I mean, we could see the shadow there of the building, and his shadow appears when he's on the grass. Why is the shadow of him not there on that building, on that segment?
Hmm.
You see what I'm saying? Because you see his
Yeah.
body, but I don't see the shadow.
Let me see. This is from Redacted. I played this the other day. Let's just see what
And then,
yeah.
oh,
Let me go back so we can look at it again. Hopefully. Maybe not. I want to see where that was. Oh, Lordy. Okay. Uh,
and then
did
see
you
there's his shadow there, and you can see it there. So should see as he's running forward, you should see his shadow in front of him when he's on the building.
okay, so you didn't see it on the building.
Yeah, if you go back and you look at him on the building running, I look, where's his shadow there?
It's in
There
front
it
of
is
him.
there, but
It's
then
in front of him.
but why is it gone there? Is the camera just not picking it up?
Well, it was in front of him. at that one place.
But it's like blipping in and out of existence. Is it there? Is it not there?
What
I
is
don't
that?
know. I don't
What
know if that's just, the camera not picking it up, but
what do you think that actually means?
uh well, I'm just wondering if maybe that's edited in
Edited.
and the guy wasn't even actually up there.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. Well, that's not something we thought about. What I was going to say is that how do we know that this person is Tyler Robinson?
Well, that too. But I mean, I just find it weird.
But in
There's all
any
these
case,
shadows that are clearly seen, but his blips in and out. And you'll notice as he's going through the grass, then his shadow's just fine. It's there the whole time. So I'm
and
just,
the shadow should show up, especially on lighter.
yeah, exactly. It should be very apparent.
Also, I do think he has some kind of weapon because it does seem to have some bulkiness to it when he comes down. If you didn't notice that, I did. Let me just play it one more time. Um, I mean, the way he's carrying it, it looks like it's heavy, like he's kind of pulling it, but I don't know. It's very odd. I, he doesn't have his backpack. I don't know where he put that. That's another thing.
Hmm. It's hard to tell from the distance. I mean, it almost looks like he has something on his back, but I don't know. I'm just finding the lack of shadow suspicious, especially since on the roof we can see right there the shadow of that upper part of the building, clear as day. All the
Yeah.
shadow is very clear, but for some reason his is like flashes in and out as he's running. And as he gets near the edge, suddenly it's just not there until he's back on the ground again. And I think when he gets near that corner, there is like a little bit of a blip again of a shadow that I'm guessing is his, but I don't know.
Hmm. Well, let's go back to her video because she had a problem with the whole weapon actually being in that bag and or in the towel, although it didn't really look like a towel to me, but I don't know what it is. It looked like one of those kind of duffel bag things, in my
Hmm.
opinion, but I don't know. They said it was a towel. So, um, let me go back to her and let me see. Am I okay? So I have a little bit more to go on this one.
Questioned by Newsmax when they said, look, we don't see the gun. How did he get the gun off the roof? This is what Cash Patel had to say.
Did anyone in the crowd or anywhere else assist in the assassination of Charlie Kirk? In other words, is there any evidence to suggest that the shooter might have had help?
As I said from the beginning, this is an extensive and exhaustive investigation, and I can only speak from the FBI's perspective that is still ongoing. We are still triaging voluminous amounts of data. We're still interrogating numerous witnesses, and we're going into devices such as cell phones and laptops and extracting data. And so that's the expertise of the FBI that we're bringing and working with our state and local partners. And as we get information that is of value, we turn it over immediately to the prosecutorial authorities for them to make their decision.
Okay, why hasn't Lance Twiggs, the boyfriend, been arrested? Don't the text messages prove that he knew that Tyler Robinson assassinated Charlie Kirk and that he did not turn him in? Why hasn't he been arrested?
Again, the charging decisions will be made by the prosecuting authorities in the state of Utah. And so we will leave those decisions to them. We are working 24/7 to provide all the evidence we can to them in a timely fashion. That's why we were on the scene almost immediately. And that's why we've been flying back and forth, not just personnel, but also DNA matters. And also these devices that you speak to. Thankfully, the FBI has regional centers scattered across the country, and we're able to exploit these devices. And that's why you have the text messages. And the text messages speak for themselves, but we're still going. We have more work to do.
Okay, and I know, Mr. Director, that you knew Charlie well. So this hits personally as well, happening just 8 days ago. Let's talk about the text messages. Does the FBI believe that they could have been, like a pre-planned setup to hide any involvement that Lance might have had in planning this assassination?
Now that the state case has been brought and the charges have been alleged, I have to withhold any sort of stylization of the evidence. And because there's more evidence coming in literally every single day as we interrogate witnesses who knew these individuals and who knew the suspect and the family members as well, we're getting more and more information. And those are
Okay. I just want to make one comment on the interrogating witnesses thing. As I was talking to you about that, Nicholas, I thought it sounded very strange because when I think of interrogation, that's a tough thing that they do to try to get answers out of the people that are suspects. So it just sounded weird that he said that instead of we interviewed some or taught, questioned some witnesses or something. It's very
Well,
strange.
I have several problems already with
Okay.
this whole thing now that I'm listening more closely to it. But first and foremost, these are simple yes and no questions. With the first question, all he had to answer is no, at this time, we have no evidence that other people were involved. Why is he going on this roundabout explanation of, and this is what the FBI does? Who cares? We know what you do. Just tell us a yes or no question. Whether he intended it or not, it's making him look like he's dodging the question.
Well, Kim said he never answered the question about the gun.
Well, yeah, that too. What I'm saying is he's not really answering anything. He's not answering, who's involved. He's not giving a yes or no. He's just, oh, well, we're investigating. Yeah, we know you're investigating. That's not what we're asking. And so I have to give it to this person interviewing him, by the way. He's doing a great job with the questions. Um, Although I would have probably pressed him a little bit harder, but it's fine. Um, and the other part was there was something else that he asked, and oh, that's what it was. He asked him, well, why didn't you arrest this person that was the roommate,
Lance
and why didn't?
Twigs. Yeah.
Yeah, and his response was, oh, we're giving this information to the local government, and I'm thinking to myself, but yet you got involved and you didn't want to leave them when they had offered to do it originally. So
Hmm.
why all of a sudden now you're dictating what they get to do and what they don't get to do?
Hmm.
Again, I don't know all the details on how the FBI works, so I'm not going to pretend that I do, but I would like to have an explanation as to why they're being so picky that, oh, they're going to be really involved with this alleged suspect of who killed Charlie, based on what they're saying, yet for whatever reason, they're not going to try, have the roommate in custody at least for a little while. No, they're going to leave that to the local government. Why?
Yeah, I'm not an expert on anything about federal agencies, but I thought that the FBI were only called in if it was a federal case, a federal issue. So maybe this was a federal issue because I'm not sure. Wouldn't it be just local? I mean, I understand the Butler PA thing was a federal issue because it was the president.
Well, it was a candidate for the elections, and he was running.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, that's a presidential candidate.
right.
This is just I mean, yes, he's known, but so they obviously called them in for some reason. I
Well,
I don't
I
know.
I don't know.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that because I know that they usually come in if it's a federal issue. Somehow this became a federal issue. Okay, because maybe because he was an advisor to President Trump, or he,
Well,
Kirk
what
was a
I think the way to phrase this is this: what can the FBI offer in this that a local law enforcement and investigators can't?
yeah, yeah. I don't know. I'm going to skip to the next part. I was going to say that goes into um
Didn't have an answer to, we don't see a gun. Where is the gun? And Kash Patel basically deflected and said, "Oh, he went into the woods." So he doesn't answer the question of where is the gun, and instead he says, "We found DNA on a towel and we found DNA on a screwdriver." Does not mention them finding DNA on the actual gun that they had recovered in the woods, just claiming it was on a towel. And many people say that when they saw Tyler Robinson jumping off the roof, it does look like he's holding a long object, but it's floppy, it's flimsy. It could have been the towel that Kash Patel is talking about. And then they're saying that that towel was then they found his DNA on it and a screwdriver on the roof. So if he disassembled some of the, because we don't really see him with the gun jumping off the roof, if he disassembled it and put it into his backpack, for one, would he have been able to even do that? If he did do that and the screwdriver was on the roof, which is what they're kind of implying, then how the hell did he put the rifle back together without the screwdriver? He left the screwdriver on the roof. So how did he put it back together in the woods in order to hide it at the supposed drop point? Here's a video of a guy showing just how large this gun is.
Okay, so she's going to show that, but he shows it as you see when he puts it in. I don't want to play that part because I don't really want to have the language on the video. But the point is, he has this backpack and he's broken it down. It took a while to get his gun broken down, and he is someone who uses guns regularly, and this is a long rifle. And what I can do is just show you what it looks like without the sound. And let me see, where did I get it? Okay, so he's holding it, and this is him coming in with it. Supposedly, that's him wrapping it up to be it's supposed to be like a reenactment. The point he was making is that he could not fit his rifle, this particular rifle that I think he said is similar to the one that was found. He couldn't fit it in his backpack. It did not bend into enough pieces that were small enough to fit into his backpack. What do you have to say?
I just find the whole thing ridiculous. I mean, for me, I'm not convinced. And as I kind of go by the logic of if I have any doubt of anything or a reasonable doubt, then I won't believe it. I need to be fully convinced that not only is this plausible, but there is at least some evidence to substantiate the claims that are being made. And from what I've seen from this, pardon me, but investigation, I think this is a very flimsy, and let's be honest, this comes off more as a cover-up story than it does an actual investigation. Now, as for I'm trying to figure out what in the world is the motive for this, because that we don't have enough information to even know, much about the suspect and, why they used a rifle and if he even was on the roof, and I mean, yeah, they have all these things that they say that they got that, but what I find issue is, Kim pointed out was why are you centering so much on the prints on the towel and a screwdriver? What about the murder weapon? I thought in investigations, the prints on the murder weapon are priority, and then anything else around the murder weapon is, second
Extra.
best.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing. Remember that in the text messages, Tyler kept emphasizing, oh, my prints are on the gun.
Yeah,
I need to go get the gun because my prints are on it.
yeah.
Which is the only place you hear that is in the text message. You don't hear them mentioning that, at least at that point in time, from Patel. And I'm wondering, and then I started to think, well, if Robinson was trying to, I mean, he could have just taken the towel and removed the prints. And why did he leave it in that wooded spot? That's another thing.
Well,
I don't understand that at all.
they say that he can remove the prints from the towel, but then I'm wondering,
No,
but
no,
okay,
no.
but then,
Remove the prints from the gun.
well,
He
I
can
know
use
that,
the
but
towel to rub it
apparently,
off.
what I'm saying is apparently that doesn't matter because apparently they can still get the prints from the towel. So my big question is, well, then why would that matter? But then why even leave behind the towel or screwdriver or whatever? Why leave any of it behind at all then?
Well, I never understood why he left it there unless maybe the place was in lockdown and he couldn't get out, so he didn't want to be, because nobody knew where he was after that. That's another thing, as Candace said, we don't know where he was all this time while he's texting, while he's, we don't know if he's in his car or if he's wandering around. He says he's close to the place, which again is very odd for a person who just murdered somebody to be still there, unless they shut the place down. He didn't say that in his text, and believe me, he had plenty of time to say a lot of stuff, but he didn't say that.
I don't know. I just find all of this very strange. Like I said, I'm really not convinced they even have the actual murderer. I don't even think they have him in custody, at least, based on what has been shown so far. I'm just not inclined to believe that the murderer has been caught.
And
So,
I will tell you all who are watching, if you're watching this, that, my son's just getting into this now. I've been filling him in on some things recently and had him watch a few Candace videos on this. So let me go to the next portion I wanted to share.
Adding up. And so as long as it's not adding up and we get these weird text messages, Kash Patel's asked about that, like, why isn't Lance Twiggs then being arrested if he knew about the crime? There's other theories about that. I don't think that you have an obligation to actually report a crime, even if you know that a crime existed or happened. I don't think that there's actually any legal obligation for you to have to report the crime. So there's a reason why maybe Lance wasn't arrested for that. But also there's thinking that the text messages are fabricated and even recreated. Some have thought that perhaps because we're not seeing the actual text messages with the timestamps, and they're saying that they were sort of reproduced, whatever that means. The New York Times says that the text messages themselves were reproduced. Now that could mean that they were just typed on, reproduced by being typed onto a different, instead of just taking the screenshots of the text messages and showing us that, instead actually typing it out to give us kind of this transcript. I mean, that could have been what's called reproduced, or could have been reproduced by Lance. Maybe did delete the text messages, or maybe the text messages never existed. And in their aggressive interrogation of the boyfriend, perhaps they intimidated him to recreate some text between him and Tyler. And of course, the text messages just so happen to completely exonerate Lance Twiggs. I mean, there's just a lot of stuff that isn't adding up. There's also the question of the exit wound. If Charlie Kirk was killed with a 30-06 rifle, that is a very powerful rifle. If it was one round, it would have, which it was, he was shot once. Where is if that was an entrance wound from the front, then the exit wound of a rifle that powerful would have absolutely resulted in the back of his neck or head, depending on the trajectory of the bullet, being blown out. And we would see back spray on that backdrop. We would see blood from the back. That would have been a large exit wound. And a lot of gun enthusiasts, a lot of people who are very experienced say the exit wound would have been catastrophic and there would have been evidence of that, but there wasn't any evidence of that sort of exit wound. So perhaps the bullet, and we have videos of another bullet looking like it's flying in from the right, and people saying that would have been a smaller caliber weapon, and that actually the hole that we saw in Charlie Kirk's neck would have been the actual exit wound, because we saw blood coming out of the wound rather than going inward, which is what you would normally see if a bullet was hitting a person and striking them. However, there is an artery there, and if you do hit an artery, you can get some blood splatter coming out. So there's ways to argue this in many different directions. But the bottom line is there's just a lot of inconsistencies. There's a lot of inconsistencies on this, and people are pointing that out. And unless the government can fill all the holes and ensure that we're getting a straightforward story that just seems like it makes sense, then I think it is our obligation, especially those of us who investigate these types of things, who research these types of things. It's our obligation to say, okay, but what about these other potential perpetrators? What about looking at other leads? What about looking in other directions? We now know that Tyler has not confessed to this crime. He is not cooperating with police. So it's not like, well, we got the guy, he confessed. And even then, yeah, the old guy, George Zinn, saying he was the shooter. And it turns out he wasn't the shooter, and people can absolutely verify he wasn't, yet he claimed that he was. So even if the person was claiming they were, why are they claiming that? What is their motive for claiming that? So look, it is our obligation, I think, to investigate every single lead. And
Okay, so she's going to get into the possibility of Izzy's being involved, or a pro-Izzy organization, group, lone nut, whatever. She just goes through her ideas on that.
I only have one thought on everything she said there. And I of course I agree with her, and I think there's a lot of contradictions. I mean, even when you feed the whole case to a machine, AI, and you just leave it open-ended and just ask how the case is, which I did out of curiosity. Even the machine says there's a lot of inconsistencies and things that look odd about the investigation, purely from, the government's investigative stance, not even accounting for all these other factors. There's just weirdness going on within that. So, and not to say that, again, an AI isn't a be all end all for this sort of thing. So take it with a grain of salt. But I do think it's worth noting that this does all come off as odd. One of the things that I was thinking about, just to kind of lead into her whole discussion on, the rifle and what people were saying about that. I think people forget that silencers exist, and you can put on a gun and make it not have any sound. Because I was thinking, is it possible that someone was in the crowd that had a gun or something and fired it at the same time that this loud rifle shot sounded out? I would think that's pretty easy to do if you can coordinate it, depending on how many people are involved. Of course,
From
that's a
different
whole.
directions? Are you talking about from different directions?
Yeah, so like they say that the bullet wound, or well, the bullet came from a different direction than what they say that it would have from the rooftop. Well, I'm thinking, okay, that's possible. They could have masked the other gunshot through the rifle, but then I thought, well, they wouldn't need to do that if they just used the silencer on the actual murder weapon, because then, there would be hardly any sound. I don't think much of anybody would recognize it and be able to know where the sound comes from. Because if someone was really close to where Charlie was and they had a small weapon with a silencer, quickly pull it out, shoot, hide it, and then leave the venue while the
Yes, but
chaos is going on from the
wouldn't
huge.
that be two wounds though, if it
Well,
was
what if the
two
rifle just
shots?
shot out a blank? They said they never found the bullet of the rifle. What if it was just a blank? I don't know.
Well,
I
well,
don't. I don't know. I'm just throwing things out there.
right, right. Well, the issue on that is that Max Blumenthal, I saw him interviewed on Dialogue Works today, and he was talking about 140 to 200 yards away, if even that is where that person was shooting. Although I don't know how it being done from the roof, because the roof seemed a bit farther, but that's what I'm thinking, is that position seemed farther, but maybe it wasn't.
Right.
In any case, all right. Okay. So let's listen to this next part that she's going to say. It's kind of, I think she gets into why we need to do this, why we should stay involved.
It's our obligation to investigate every single lead and to ensure that whatever story we are being told, it adds up. And the bottom line is that there's too many plot holes with this story. There's too many. What about the bullet that's been seen frame by frame flying at Charlie Kirk from the right? What about the exit wound? What about the fact we don't see Tyler ever with a weapon? What about the fact you haven't even said, Cash Patel, that his fingerprints or his DNA was found on the actual weapon itself? How about the fact you've never recovered the bullet to know for sure whether or not that weapon that you recovered is actually the weapon that killed Charlie Kirk? You don't even know that because you haven't been able to get the bullet, which is really odd that there would be no bullet or fragments of bullets. If it came from a 30-06, it would have gone right through him. And even if it didn't go right through him and it lodged in his spine, why wasn't that recovered during an autopsy? Instead, he was
Okay, there was some questions on that. Somebody was said that in one of the videos, underneath one of the videos I was watching. They said, "Why is there no autopsy info, or why isn't there an autopsy being done? Because already been buried." That's another thing. It was 2 days later, his body was in a casket, and he's been buried,
Well, I'd hope
apparently.
that the bullet was taken out at least before burying him, just out of respect for his body.
So I'm thinking, yeah, if it's in him still, that's they should have taken that out and done this. Now, of course, autopsies take a while, so that's now I don't know what's going to happen with that.
Well, my question is, I thought autopsies were only used in the case of where you don't know how the person died. And so they try to figure that out. But if he died from a gunshot wound, then why would you need an autopsy other than obviously to hopefully retrieve the bullet if it is lodged inside him and then just removed and then pronounce him he died from a gunshot.
Well, I
And
mean,
then,
they did an autopsy on JFK, and they knew he was shot in the head.
well, right.
So,
But I just don't know how much, I don't know what all that entails. So,
yeah. So, in any case, I assume an autopsy report should come out in the next few weeks, but they don't seem very big on giving information out that's important. They tend to just I just find that interesting that they already have him in the coffin, and they are doing all this, which I didn't think was weird at first, but I don't know. Um, it's just the whole thing sounds very strange. And then she's going to go into, um, she talks about why she thinks it could be the Izzy's.
Put into a casket within 2 days. Where's the autopsy report? Where's the entry wound? Where's the exit? There's all of these questions. We're not getting any answers. And instead, what we're being met with online by people who are typically skeptical about everything is they're saying, how dare you be skeptical of this? How dare you question the government when it comes to this? And it's just like the liberals that were totally and completely against big pharma for the longest time, only to suddenly during COVID tell us all that we just had to take the jab, in fact, 5, 10 times over. Just do what big pharma tells you, because big pharma is now suddenly in your best interest. And that is what we're seeing from the right. These supposed libertarians who usually question the government, and now they're out there saying, how dare you, and shut your mouth. You're just a big conspiracy theorist. How dare you? Now, people say, well, what's the motivation? Why would the government then lie about Tyler? What would be their motivation? Well, why would the government lie about many perpetrators of crimes? We have in the state of Illinois, for example, Northwestern University had an investigative unit that would look into all of the inmates on death row. And what they found was that half of all death row inmates were basically were innocent. When they actually looked at the cases, they found half of death row inmates were innocent. Now, these are not high profile cases. These are not people that you would know about or read about in the news, yet they were found guilty of crimes they did not do. Why is that? Because law enforcement needs to come up with perpetrators. They need to solve cases. They have a lot of pressure to solve cases. And if they'll do it in just random cases in a random state, they'll do it certainly for a high profile case, especially when they arrested two people wrongfully. They didn't want to get the third one wrong. That would make them look really inept. So just the motivation of the government to just go along with the story of, it was Tyler, we're going to make everything fit. We're going to make all of the square pegs fit into a round hole no matter what. And anything that doesn't fit, we're just not going to answer the question. We're just going to evade. The reasoning would be they need to look like they're not idiots. They need to solve crimes. And this crime in particular, they really need to solve. What would be Israel's motive, people say? Then why would Israel do it? Well, Israel itself as a state, I actually don't think Israel itself as a state did this. I don't think that there was I don't think there was a Mossad plot where they got together. I mean, it could be. And so I'm not willing to rule that out until we get more evidence. But it seems more likely that it would have been more of a fringe pro-Israel group or fringe pro-Israel agenda that really felt like he was being an enemy. He was starting to act like an enemy. He was afraid of them. And perhaps they're the ones who, I mean, look, if they can plant pagers in bombs and pagers over the course of a couple of years. There's a lot of things that they could do and be very sophisticated about and get away with really easily. It's a very, very sophisticated people, whether they be actually state sanctioned or just trained, highly trained, and having the same agenda as the state. What would be the reason? And why not Tucker Carlson? People say, why not Nick Fuentes? Why not all of these people that are more anti-Israel than Charlie Kirk? Charlie Kirk was a friend to Israel because Charlie Kirk was more dangerous. The friend to Israel who has all the Gen Zers, and he's been leading those Gen Z followers that he has towards Israel, and suddenly he started questioning things. Suddenly he started demanding the Epstein files. Suddenly he wanted to have debates about genocide and about ethnic cleansing. And that would have been very dangerous for what Israel is desperately trying to prevent, which is losing Gen Z. They already know they've pretty much lost Gen Z. Charlie Kirk was the last shining hope of not losing Gen Z, but they were starting in their minds, whether it was true or not, in their minds, there was clearly panic, believing that they were losing Charlie Kirk. So it'd be better to make him a martyr. It'd be better to say he was one of ours and he died before he could even turn or take one more step in the other direction. And that would be the motive. And if Charlie himself felt fear, and if Charlie himself felt intimidated, then it's worth looking into. I mean, it's a really simple, it's just like, yeah, there was an Institute of Virology that happens to.
Okay, so she goes into the COVID thing. But I mean, that is a good point. And she didn't add into the part where this particular guy mentions, if we remember this, he says, this Harrison Smith said, I'm not going to name names, but I was told by someone close to Charlie Kirk that Charlie thinks Israel will kill him if he turns against them. So, and we know this. We know this because Max Blumenthal reported that Charlie was worried about something like that happening to him. So anyway,
And
what are your
here,
thoughts?
well, several things. Charlie thought Israel will kill him, not some radical fringe group. Israel, meaning the state.
Hmm.
At least we can assume on what we have. I would think that, or at least I would hope, that if Charlie had those concerns, he would have been specific in saying it was some radical fringe group or something rather than the state, if that was the case. But even so, I have to disagree with Kim and her that she doesn't believe, you know, the state was involved with this. Okay. Um, and really the reason why is I decided to do a quick check and just, you know, again, knowing how intelligence within the ISI state works, I found this. Israel's Mossad and Unit 8200, which I hadn't heard of, are known for extensive cyber operations, digital surveillance, and infiltration of online platforms, including Discord-like communities.
Oh yeah, well that's known that they're in there spying around like a lot of other people.
Well, why is there all this this stuff centered around these texts and then the Discord stuff? Well, instantly I'm thinking, okay, well, if this state has a history of this sort of behavior, I think it's worth just exploring. Again, nobody's saying that they did do it, but I think it's worth trying to see. And again, the fact that Charlie Kirk made that claim and the FBI has not, I mean, surely they know that these claims are circulating. Thus, if the victim made that claim before they died and that was a concern, it is their job to at some point look into that. And instead, here they are ready to close the case before even doing counterintelligence or anything. Nobody's saying they have to publicly say what they're investigating because, stuff with foreign countries can be iffy. And, there's all sorts of risks with that, I'm sure. but I think at least flagging it as something potentially to look at instead of what we're seeing now. Oh no, Charlie was close to Israel. Oh no, this, that, and the other. And again, Netanyahu coming out for whatever reason. I don't understand why the man feels the need to say all these things, which, whether he's intending to or not, is making him and Israel look suspicious. So again, I don't know if that's just him not thinking this through or if he's just too stressed with these other things, but that's just how it looks.
Right. And it could be also um, our own intel as well. But in
Yes,
any
of
case,
course.
yes. So let's go on to another thing I watched that was really had some very interesting information. I've never seen this guy's channel before, but I found it very interesting. It's let me see if I can find him in here. So he's a it's called the Behavioral Arts. That's his channel. And what he's doing here is he's looking at the body language of Tyler Robinson at his court hearing with the judge. And so he's basically saying that he was pretty stoic throughout the whole thing, but there's certain times when he's nodding, like he accepts or understands what's going on, what the judge is saying to him. Um, but it gets kind of more interesting the further along we go. So let me see if I can just put this ahead of what he's talking about here.
Sedated or medicated. Maybe that's why we're not seeing too many reactions. But I think
Now he's saying that somebody was saying that they believe that he was sedated, that's why he was stoic. But let's just go from there.
most people are doing is that they're connecting this kind of vest to psychiatric facilities. But that is not where he's coming from. And so I asked a lot of my friends who do exactly this for a living, work with courts, prisons, jails, at evaluating criminals, and they all said with zero disagreement that it's very unlikely that he's sedated or medicated. First and foremost, because he hasn't been evaluated psychologically and he's not in some kind of psychiatric hospital. Secondly, and this is huge, it opens the door for mistrial or an appeal. If somehow there's an adverse effect, he reacts, something happens, they could blame it on the medication and throw the whole case out. And that's a really slippery slope. There is very little reason to believe that he is medicated or sedated. And that's not coming from me, that's coming from friends of mine that I asked who would really know this kind of thing. Now we're going to move on and look at his reactions to some of the details of this case that are giving us quite a bit of information and this huge inconsistency in the way that this was reported that is so frustrating. But before we do me a huge favor, hit that subscribe button, turn those notifications on for more behavioral analysis and practical psychology content. And do me a huge favor and take a second to like this video because it really helps with the growth of the channel.
We have filed a pretrial protective order on behalf of Erica Kirk. We would ask the court to review that. It should be in your queue, Your Honor, and sign that.
Thank you. I have reviewed the pretrial protective order and will be issuing this pretrial protective order in favor of Erica Kirk. Is there any other business that we need to address today, counsel?
Just for the court's information, we did file just recently, within the last few minutes, a notice of intent to seek the death penalty that was filed by Utah County Attorney Jeff Gray. So that should be in the court's file.
Okay, so this one's going to be quick, but notice what happens with his eyes when Erica Kirk is brought up. That is Charlie Kirk's wife, now widow. And you'll notice with Tyler, the moment that the name is brought up, his eyes go to the left like this. And this is something he very often does when he's trying to recollect or remember data. So often when dates come up, notice how his eyes go to the left, or when people come up, he does this as well. And I know there are a lot of sources that say like, oh, this way is real recall. So when you see someone, go that way, it's a lie. And this way, I don't really know. But all that has been disproven. Even the people who first said that in a book were like, no, it's really not reliable and you need baseline. So yes, if you know that someone, every time they recall, go this way, and now all of a sudden they're going that way, you could ask yourself some questions, especially if there's other stuff going on. But there is no consistent pattern that has shown that this always means truth, that always means deception. Think about it. If that was the case, Trials or interrogations would take seconds, not days or weeks, because the moment somebody went the way whatever lie is, that's it. They're lying, end of story. Now, in this case, immediately after that, after this left movement, he comes back for a little bit, and then the eyes go downwards like this. And again, this is associated to some kind of negative emotion. And it's a really good example here of an emotion, but again, not being 100% sure what that emotion is connected to because he's not talking. So we don't know exactly what's in his head because what's being discussed is the protective order against Erica Kirk. So is this negative feeling towards Erica Kirk? Is it towards the protective order? Is it towards what happened to her, the position she's in? It's really hard to know, but there is a moment of negative there. The thoughts go downwards. Now notice what happens when the prosecutor says that they just filed a couple of minutes ago a request to go after the death penalty. And if we look at Tyler, all we see is that upwards bob like this. And this is where I love behavioral analysis because we looked at the details of his head bobs and we know that acknowledgement is more like this. And this tends to happen in negative moments. So we could see that there and go, okay, it's happening again. But besides that, there really isn't much going on with him. Like imagine if you were on trial and the prosecutor said for the first time that they're going to go after the death penalty. You would expect some kind of reaction to that, right? Eyes opening up in fear, looking around, some kind of pacifier, adapter, like, oh my God, they're going after the death penalty. And with him, we're just getting this upwards nod, which we know he often does in negative moments. But besides that, like, he's keeping it together pretty well. So I don't know what that is. Is it that he doesn't care? Is it that he doesn't want to show weakness, that he's keeping it together like really well, besides this slight nod that we know is negative because we've been watching him really close? I don't really know what this is, but he's keeping it together pretty well.
The defendant, Tyler James Robinson, committed criminal homicide in the physical presence of a child younger than 14 years of age, with knowledge that a child was present and that may have been seen or heard the commission of the criminal homicide. Victim targeting enhancement in violation of Utah Code annotated 76-3-203.14. Sub 2, Tyler James Robinson intentionally selected Charlie Kirk because of Tyler James Robinson's belief or perception regarding Charlie Kirk's political expression. That concludes reading the information. Mr. Robinson, this case is set for September 29th at 10 a.m. There will be a waiver hearing.
So there isn't much to talk about here. And that's the whole point, that there isn't much to talk about. Throughout the reading of the charges, he was very, very stoic. And I first saw this in short form on social media, I think Instagram. And I was looking at it and I was wondering that the clip that I saw, was this a picture of him while the judge is talking? Because there was stretches where we barely see anything out of him. So the event was mentioned, the children were mentioned, and throughout this entire thing, we're getting nothing. And all this is very interesting to me because there are a lot of theories out there. You know, some people believe he did this. Others believe he must have had some other people helping him with this. Some people believe he had nothing to do with this. But despite all that, whatever the case, I would expect to see some kind of emotional reaction to what's being said here. Like, for example, I know that almost anyone I've talked to about this event, regardless of where they fall on the political landscape, when they think about the children, Charlie Kirk's children being there and witnessing that, almost everyone gets a sad reaction to that. And anytime I think about it, I think about my own family and my own kid and this kind of thing happening, and I get really sad about that as well. So what, like, even whether he did this, whether he didn't do this, whether, you know, there was other people, why is there nothing happening when the kids are coming up? It's possible, it's very possible, whether somebody else advised him or he thought of this himself, that he's under the impression that he shouldn't react to anything because it could be an admission. So he told himself, just sit there, glaze over, give him nothing, because otherwise they can use it against you. Or those guys on YouTube will look at your body language, are going to be like, oh, look, there's guilt there, so he must have done this. So I don't know. Maybe he's making a conscious effort to not give any reactions. And that's exactly where this gets really interesting and frustrating. And I discovered something that no one else has talked about, and I don't blame them.
Okay, so before we get into what his big thing that he finds out, what was your opinion of how Robinson was acting?
I'm more inclined to believe that his lack of emotion or reactions might have been suggested if he has a lawyer that's defending him, which I would imagine he might have something at this point, some legal consultation, maybe.
Oh, well, you didn't see that part. At the beginning, he had like a public defender or somebody that they were going
Okay,
to get for him because of money issues, I
right.
think is what they were saying. So, yeah.
But regardless, if you, I think it's fairly common knowledge that I feel like I've heard that if you are guilty or not guilty, if you're innocent or guilty and you're just being tried, it's often best not to show any emotion so as not to suggest anything.
Okay.
That's so I would be inclined to believe that might be the case here. Obviously, I agree with the guy. This doesn't prove anything, doesn't prove if he's innocent, doesn't prove he's guilty. But I do want to bring something up that he mentioned at the beginning that he's like, well, there's no way he could be sedated because they didn't do an evaluation. But I find that odd as someone who's been through mental stuff and all the questioning and stuff. He has that weird looking jacket or something on him during
Oh,
that.
yeah, that's the one that I told you was put on him because of they use those to it's almost like a straitjacket, but it's not. It's to protect him. Supposedly they for his suicidal, although that was never really proven to me in anything
Well,
he said, but
but you see, so they think so there are enough. So what I don't understand, and this is the sort of disconnect in my mind, is well, they didn't use medicine against him because there was no evaluation. Yet clearly there was some sort of evaluation going on because they decided to put this jacket on him to prevent self-harm. But if there was no evaluation done to prove that he was suicidal, then why would you need to put that on him? And again, and I mean, I generally agree that, drugging someone up can obviously, mess with the whole, trial and, the person and what they have to say. So I agree with that. I'm wanting to know a little bit more details on that. I kind of wish he would have talked about that and see what those people have to say because
well,
I find that
he
odd.
had that written note afterwards. I guess it was after he did the video that they were working on a psych eval with him. You'll notice the white lettering that came up. It said something like they were now working on it, but I don't know if it was. I don't recall if that was before or after. He just put that in after his video, so I don't know how that worked. I don't. I assume it was afterwards. So
Hmm.
let's go on and let's listen to what he discovers.
Because what happened to me was very specific. So what happened is I first saw it on Instagram and I said, wow, this guy's not giving him anything. And then when I was going to do this analysis, I went on YouTube and I searched for the whole footage and I came across the version on ABC News. And as I was watching it, I saw something completely different. Watch this.
Tyler James Robinson intentionally selected Charlie Kirk because of Tyler James Robinson's belief or perception regarding Charlie Kirk's political expression. That concludes reading the information. Mr. Robinson.
Please tell me you notice the difference. In this version, when the judge said that Tyler intentionally selected Charlie Kirk because of his belief or perception of Charlie Kirk's political expression, as he's saying because of Charlie Kirk's political expression, we see Tyler nod downwards, the same way he does when he acknowledges things. And in that moment, I'm looking at that going, wait a second, like this whole time he was stoic, and this one moment where in this slip up where he's going, yep, that's why I did it.
Kirk's political expression.
But there was a little voice in my head that was like, wait a second. I saw this on Instagram earlier, and he never acknowledged anything. I was looking specifically for that, so there's no way I would have missed that. So I took both clips. I took the ABC News one that I was watching that has tons of views online, and then I compared it directly to another one that I found that was from a news source in Salt Lake City, and I synced up the audio to where the judge is saying the same thing. And I looked at Tyler, and it wasn't the same thing. In the local one, in the Salt Lake City one, all the charges are read. He doesn't react. And then when the judge says that concludes the charges or whatever, when he's done, when he's concluded, that's when we see the acknowledgement like this. So Tyler goes, good, okay, we're done. I get it, acknowledge. So I'm going to play them side by side. I'm going to show you this clip. And on the right, the little box, that's ABC News. And you'll even hear that the audio is synced. And on the left is the one from the news station from Salt Lake City. And look at when that nod hits. On ABC, it's an acknowledgement to the charge. On the Salt Lake City one, it's an acknowledgement to we've concluded.
Because of Tyler James Robinson's belief or perception regarding Charlie Kirk's political expression, that concludes one information. Mr. Robinson.
To clarify, in the beginning, they were both synced, and it seemed like the responses that he was giving were timed well with what was being said. And then at this moment, I realized that the clips were out of sync. So I'm watching one of them, and I'm watching him not react throughout and only react when it's done to acknowledge, okay, we're done. And that one, by the way, is on a network called KUTV2 News that's in Salt Lake City. But then on ABC News, one of the biggest news platforms of the country, I'm seeing this report that's been seen by tons of people out there. And when he's being told, when the judge is saying the motive for having done this, which is political expression, we're seeing an acknowledgement. And listen, you don't need to be a body language analyst to see that acknowledgement, right? The judge is saying that Tyler specifically chose Charlie Kirk because of his political beliefs. You're seeing the guy in that moment acknowledge it like this, the way he's acknowledged other things before. Seriously, what are we doing here? The year is 2025. Why does this footage look like it was filmed on a potato from the 17th century? Everything is choppy, everything is laggy. So what I did is I looked at both clips and tried to listen and look at the judge to see which one is more synced with his audio. And in both cases, it was, again, super laggy, pixelated, choppy, but it does seem like the one on KUTV makes a little more sense with the way that the judge is moving when he's speaking and the way like he puts the papers down. It looks like it makes a little bit more sense and lines up with him finishing and Tyler just acknowledging that that concludes the charges. But I have no way of knowing that for sure. I don't know where that lag came from. And even if the judge seems synced, how do I know for sure that the feed that we're getting from Tyler is at the right time? Who's to say which of the two got it right? When you have two news outlets playing the same audio, the same footage, but the guy who's on trial in one of the most high-profile cases right now in all of America, and we can't see what the guy's reaction is. Why are we even filming this? All right, thanks for listening.
Okay, that to me was really interesting. To me, the okay, my conspiracy mind is thinking, okay, so ABC is it has a wider audience than obviously a local channel. Are they wanting to make this a point of, yes, he wants to admit that was his motive when that nod wasn't in the local one?
I feel like I need to go back and see that side by side comparison again because there was something odd about the ABC clip.
Okay.
The little box, that's ABC News, and you'll even hear that the audio is synced. And on the left is the one from the news station from Salt Lake City. And look at when that nod hits. On ABC, it's an acknowledgement to the charge. On the Salt Lake City one, it's an acknowledgement to we've concluded.
Because of Tyler James Robinson's belief or perception regarding Charlie Kirk's political expression, that concludes one of the information. Mr. Robinson.
To clarify, in the beginning, they were both synced, and it seemed like the responses that he was giving were timed well with what was being said. And then at this moment, I realized that the clips were out of sync. So I'm watching one of them, and I'm watching him not react throughout and only react when it's done to acknowledge, okay, we're done. And that one, by the way, is on a network called KUTV2 News that's in Salt Lake City.
Yeah.
But then on ABC News, one of the biggest news platforms of the country, I'm seeing this report that's been seen by tons of people out there. And when he's being told, when the judge is saying the motive for having done this, which is political expression, we're seeing an acknowledgement. And listen, you don't need to be a body language analyst to see that acknowledgement, right? The judge is saying that Tyler specifically chose Charlie Kirk because of his political beliefs. You're seeing the guy in that moment acknowledge it like this, the way he's acknowledged other things before. Seriously, what are we doing here?
So what did that help?
I don't know. It's just seems odd. Like, not only is the nod different, but there's just something weird about the ABC footage and I can't quite tell if because it seems stable enough, but like when he was doing the close-up earlier in the video of it, it was really weird. Whereas I'm trying to look at the side by side, and on the original footage, he seems so much more still, and you have the natural breathing that you can kind of tell. But then on the ABC News, it almost seems like most of that like breathing effect and such is exaggerated, where he's like puffing out, not in like a huge way, but it's weird. It doesn't look exactly the same. And I don't know if, I'm just imagining things and I'm looking at it again and it still looks kind of odd. But what I'm trying to get at is it's very possible that that has been put through some AI video editing program or something where AI has either added frames, maybe smoothed over the cut that they made to that could show that they were trying to have a more clean transition so it doesn't look edited. So meaning if they wanted to put his nod there, the AI could help smooth that over to make a better transition or make it seem more natural. I mean, these are all very easy things, AI can do now. Now, that doesn't mean it's not noticeable to a keen eye, but I can't help but wonder if they used AI because, you know, as someone who's looked over people, dissecting AI videos and even seen purely AI videos, that kind of wobble or breathing effect is pretty much in every AI generated or edited video I've seen.
Oh,
So
okay. Yeah,
it has
I
not,
didn't even think about that. What I was thinking about though was how they put how ABC has that nod in at that particular time instead of at the end. It seems in my conspiratorial mind that they may have done that on purpose so that it looks more guilty. Because remember, he really has he hasn't confessed, and he I think it was going to go into that as not guilty. So why would he have nodded?
I think this is more of trying to create evidence rather than take it, trying to create something that isn't there. And to be fair, this could be for a number of reasons. It could be to make the news source look like, oh, look, see, we've got something that other news sources don't have. We found him, admitting to it, things like that. It could just be for clout, could be to send some sort of message to the people watching, trying to, a form of propaganda. It could be a number of things. But, I mean, it could be just a honest mistake, but I have suspicions that the footage was tampered with, given what we're seeing. So I
Well,
think this,
considering he said he didn't see that at first, and he saw
well,
it
yeah,
on.
but what I'm just saying is, even if we went by the assumption that, oh, well, maybe it was just, it's hard to tell if the latency and maybe there was delay or something like that. And I'm like, well, I don't know, that's some pretty severe delay. I don't think they would have even, I think they were probably would have tried to do in person if the delay was that bad, first and foremost. And second of all, I just don't find that believable. I think there's evidence that this was tampered with, especially if you look at just the ABC footage when he has it zoomed in on just that and you see what it looks like. Um, Not that one. It was, I think, further. No, more up. It was, yeah, that one right there. You see it, and if you look at it, his neck is where, and the head, if you really look at that area, and even a little bit of his arms, if you play it, you'll see what I mean.
Intentionally selected Charlie Kirk because of Tyler James Robinson's belief or
Yeah,
perception
there. Did you
regarding
see how
political expression. That
there's
conclusion
just this kind of, there's this faint
Yeah, I
Like
saw that.
his neck
I
kind
thought he
of,
was swallowing or something, but
I
I guess
thought so too. But when I see, if you look at the original, I think, there is a little bit of that there too. So it's hard to say. Now, these models have gotten better at, keeping things together. So again, this
I mean,
could
this is
just
what he
be,
looks like here on the other one.
yeah, I don't know. Again, I don't know. I could just be seeing things. It might not be anything. But I can't help but be suspicious of that all the time now because
Right,
it,
right. Well, that's understandable.
so
We're going to go into the
Someone who's pretty non-reactive for a long stretch while the charges are being read. We're not seeing any emotional spikes in places where we would expect them. Surprise, fear, a little bit of anger, maybe some sadness. These are all universal, so we would see little signs of them. We're not seeing those, which indicates to me that he's making a very conscious effort to not let anything slide, because even if you weren't much of an emotional person, we would still see slight reactions to stuff. So it takes a lot of conscious effort to not give anything. So I think that's what's happening. But now let's move on to this text exchange between him and his roommate, who's also a romantic interest. And a lot of people are talking about this text exchange and some weird elements to it. So let's go through them, and I'll kind of highlight a couple of things that's out there people are talking about that I agree with, and then some other things that I noticed that are very bizarre to me from a behavioral standpoint about these texts. Okay, so the roommate's name is reportedly Lance Twiggs, and these are their texts. And on some news sources, it's presented like actual texts. And then on other sources, it's almost like it's retranscribed into a conversation. And there are signs there that there have been some modifications, which we'll talk about in a second. But let's kind of read through this to get a bit of a vibe as to what's going on. So it starts with Tyler saying, "Drop what you are doing, look under my keyboard." And then there's a note there that says that the roommate looked under the keyboard and found a note that stated, "I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk and I'm going to take it." So there was a note that declared this, and the roommate comes back with what? With all these question marks. "You're joking, right?" More question marks. Then Tyler responds with a bunch of details about where he is, and he's got to get his rifle. And he says, "To be honest, I had hoped to keep this secret till I died of old age. I am sorry to involve you." In a moment, we'll come back to some of the wording here that's interesting. But I really want to talk about something that immediately for me was a question mark. And it's the fact that he's saying, "I had hoped to keep this secret till I died of old age." So, first of all, if he wrote a letter that we saw above that he left for the roommate to reveal his plan, and if at this point he wasn't caught yet, because we know that at this point when they're texting, they weren't onto him yet, he hadn't confessed yet, why is he confessing? If he had hoped to hold on to this secret, why isn't he? What is forcing him to let the roommate in on it at this point? We're not getting a motive for letting him in on it. Then we have the roommate saying, "You weren't the one who did it, right?" And we know that there was a note under the keyboard that said, "I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk." Now on the news, Charlie Kirk, has been shot. And the roommate is asking, "You weren't the one who did it, right?" But this is fine. This could be just like, they're in denial, they're uncertain, whatever, I'll let that go. And he goes, I'm sorry." And then the first question the roommate asks is, "I thought they caught the person." There's no, "Oh my God, are you okay? Holy shit, where are you? What's going on?" There's no panic. For somebody who started with that many question marks, right? So this is someone who's explosive, expressive. Now they're just asking these simple questions that are even about to get reduced to one word questions. It's kind of inconsistent. Why isn't that panic continuing? Then Tyler responds with a mini novel with details about what his plan was and what he was intending on doing. And this includes sentences like "my drop point," and "there's one vehicle lingering." So we're getting this kind of thing. So then we have this like one word "why."
Do you have something you want to say?
something just occurred to me. Why is he willing to admit here that he did it, and yet now he's not confessing to the police? If these texts were taken and they just showed him, "You said it here," and he's not admitting to it, but he admitted to it here, well, that's odd. Unless, I mean, maybe we could brush this off as, "Oh, well, it was someone he trusted, and so, but then it's as he said earlier, it was a secret he was hoping to take to his grave, but then he's telling it here, and then he's admitting to it that he did it, and now if this is the suspect, that this is the person that killed him, now he's denying all of it. That's very bouncing all over the place. So I just thought I'd throw that in there.
Yeah, yeah.
And then Tyler goes, why did I do it? And the roommate goes, yeah. So again, we've reduced it to these one-word questions now. And it's almost like, instead of going like, oh my God, why did you do this? What's going on through your head? Like more panic, more questions, more, it's just why. And Tyler is the one who has to expand on that. Why did I do it? Yeah. So you know what? Let me give you my theory now. Let's operate under the assumption that they have the right guy. I know that there are a lot of theories out there, but let's just operate under the assumption that Tyler is in fact the person who did this. And let's operate under the assumption that these text exchanges are legit. And in a moment, we'll talk about some other theories there, but let's for now just assume that they are, right? If all those things are true, my theory is that this entire text exchange is a piece of fabricated theater to communicate to an onlooker that the roommate did not know about this plan. That's why we're getting these insane amount of details. That's why we're getting styles of communication that aren't that standard. You know, like first we have panic, then it's like, why? And it's almost like Tyler is realizing that the roommate forgot their line. Like, no, you were supposed to say, why did I do that? So he improvised and go, why did I do it? And the roommate goes, yeah. And then he responds with another paragraph of motive and more details about exactly where he is and what's going on. And you would expect him to be in a panic and just, you know, he's probably shaking, he's nervous. You would expect short replies saying, you know, trying to get out of here, see you soon, don't worry, everything's fine. You would expect these brief things, but we're getting mountains of explanations here. Then again, the roommate asks a short question. How long have you been planning this? That's the next line in this little theater. And then Tyler again goes into a flood of detail. But let's look at some of these details. So there is a squad car parked right by it, not a police car, a squad car. Then again, the use of the word vehicle. As I got to my vehicle, I'm worried what my old man would do if I didn't bring back grandpa's rifle. So old man. Then again, all these very specific details of exactly what's going on, and grandpa's worried about the gun and what he's doing with the gun, all these details. And then the line for me that I just can't ignore, which is, since Trump got into office, my dad, and my dad is in brackets, has been pretty diehard MAGA. So again, we'll talk about all this in just a second. And then at the end, we have this exchange, "You are all I worry about, love," to which the roommate responds, "I'm much more worried about you." So this is the first time we're actually seeing worry in this one line, no exclamation points, no punctuation, for someone who started with a ton of punctuation. And then Tyler says, you know, don't talk to the media, don't take interviews, and, you know, if the police come, just lawyer up. And I guess this kind of relates back to what I was questioning earlier. I guess he's thinking if they find the rifle and they trace it back to him, maybe they're going to go talk to the roommate. But all that would take so much time. Like, does he not understand that he'll probably get to the roommate before they do? If he's leaving now, he'll probably be able to get the roommate before they do, and they'll be able to have these conversations, but he's still sending all this by text. He's like, I was hoping to keep this till I die of old age, but then why did you spill the beans right now? You don't have any reason to believe that they're onto you. They interviewed the wrong guys. Nobody's onto you. And by his own admission, it looks like he's about to walk away from this whole thing. So already that to me was a little unclear. And then there's literal evidence that the text exchange has been in some way modified, because first of all, there's ellipses all over the place, that little ... and that's fine. Maybe they removed certain things because it's evidence or it's part of the investigation. That's okay. But then the part where he talks about his dad, the "my dad" is in those brackets that we use to specify something in journalism usually. So if the person said like "he," and then, you know, we're referencing this in an article, we replace the "he" with whoever that "he" is in these types of brackets. So we know that there's been some kind of modification. And it would be nice to know, like, how much of this was changed? How much of the original are we seeing? How much was left out in those points? Because that might help bridge certain gaps. Was the roommate freaking out more, asking more questions that I would expect to see? So I don't know what's missing. But the bigger point about this line, you know, ever since Trump got into office, my dad has been pretty diehard MAGA, is that he's calling this person my love. He's texting him a confession. They live together. They're obviously very close. These are conversations that they've had. The roommate would know that the dad has been pretty diehard MAGA. This is something Tyler would have complained about. It just seems so like these are the things that we need to say so people won't know that this was premeditated and that you knew about this before it happened. And then the last thing about this is something that there's a lot of talk about online, and I didn't initially notice all of these, but I definitely noticed some of these. I noticed that he used the word my old man
I noticed
and
that.
vehicle to talk about his car. But some other people online noticed some other odd terms like drop point or till I died of old age. And let me tell you what I think this is. I think it once again contributes to this whole two-person text theater for us. So think about how in a movie sometimes you see a character call someone and we're only seeing this one person. And when the phone picks up, they go, hey, John, no, whatever. Like they say what it is, or hey, mom, no. And that's not for that conversation. Because usually when we call a friend, we go, hey, man, what's going on? Like we know who it is. They know who we are. This is for us, the viewers, to understand context. And this conversation is very similar to that. There are these things that doesn't make sense that he would be saying to Lance, but are there for us as outsiders to go, oh, okay, this is the fiction. This is the theater that we're supposed to accept. I also believe, based on these texts, if Tyler in fact sent these texts, that he's a bit of an outcast, a bit of a loner. And, it's been reported that he spent enormous time online. So probably a little antisocial. And I don't think he's a trendsetter. I think he's a bit of a follower. And I don't think he knows what cool is. So he picks up these terms. Like a lot of these terms, it's like he watched some war movie or police movie and picked up like squad car and vehicle and drop point. And he's using that in his language because he thinks that's what cool is. And then he watched some old movie where someone said, my old man, and until I die of old age. And he worked that into his little script here, into his little theater. Because if we don't look at it through that lens, this exchange between a guy who's on the run and his roommate, who's also his romantic partner, doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense that this is the conversation that they would have. Sorry, there's a lot of scattered thoughts, but another thing.
I think, yeah. How long have you been planning this? It sounds like a question that somebody interrogating him would say. Like all these questions that just so he'll tell. It's almost like you would think Lance was like an undercover cop. I'm gonna pretend like I mean, for a minute there, that's what I was thinking. Like, okay, so he's trying to get this out of him. You know what I mean? And the whole maggot thing. Yeah, he Lance should know that if they're close.
You know, I don't know if I don't know how many people know this, but there's been a lot of initiatives lately, and this is why I'm so keeping an eye out for anything that suggests AI involvement in any of this, is because there's been a lot of government deals, especially in the military and other parts of government that have been, and I'm talking like $200 million contracts and stuff between the government and places like OpenAI and stuff, for involvement. And there's a whole thing of that has been unfolding, and I've been kind of following that in little bursts and seeing developments, and it's progressing pretty quickly. And again, as someone who's fiddled around with these tools before, this text exchange is something that could be very easily created by an AI. All you have to do is just say, there's this person, so and so, and this person, like, for instance, I could do it with me and my friend. I can input it and they all it needs to know is just basic stuff. And then it could be like it'll like recreate things that I say or he says. And it obviously sounds nothing like us and how we would talk, and I'm just giving an example, but and then, that would be that. That would be the um what's the word? It you could make it seem like we're having a conversation we're not actually having. And there's certain quirks that come up in those stories, I'll say, that make it very obvious these are not real people talking or having a conversation. And the whole my dad in brackets thing to
Yeah,
me
that's
is a
strange.
huge, yeah, it's a huge, oh, this is AI making a note because it will do weird things like this.
Hmm.
I don't think people realize that you have to often in order for AI is a tool. And unless you give very explicit instructions on what it should and should not do when it's generating something, it will make a lot of really awkward mistakes like that. And often you have to refine it many, many, many times before it comes off close enough to human writing. And really, at that point, you've done so much work yourself that, yeah, it's not even really the machine anymore, it's the person. So that's what I'm trying to get at. So.
Hmm. Yeah. It was a very odd conversation. As I said, overall, the whole thing is strange. And again, it just sounds like somebody questioning somebody who's a suspect or undercover cop. Oh, why did you do that? And then, it's like they're
Mhm.
recording them or something.
Also, something worth noting, the AI will generate a story based on the user's way of talking and what background they have or the and such. So if this was someone in law enforcement, let's say FBI, for example, that wanted this prompt, that would explain why certain vocabulary like vehicle, squad car, and more of those
It's more
formal,
law enforcement type. Yeah, that
yeah,
is more like police people talk. That's what they
because
say.
the AI is always trying, by default, trying to cater to the user by using language and stuff that they would recognize. This
Mm.
is something I battled with for a while when I was first using it, and it was absolutely annoying. And so I had to basically tear it down and restructure it to not do that, to cater to whatever I want to hear. Because I was like, no, I'm not here for that. I'm here to use you as a tool to help research things, and I don't want you just parroting back what I want to hear when I'm here to research. So, and it took a lot of, tinkering with it to get to that point. But even the AI admitted that while it has these capabilities to do things more properly, by default, its factory default settings is to cater to whatever the user says, does, or whatever field they're in. So,
So they are able to put that out because they think that not many people really know how AI works,
well, they don't.
perhaps.
I
Yeah.
mean, statistics have shown that most users just ask AI I mean, it's like what we did in that other video when they fed the AI, oh, was this fabricated or whatever? And I said, well, where's the follow-up question? Where,
Hmm.
where's the why? What's the motive? All this stuff. You can't just end there, but there's so many people that do just that thing with AI, and then it ends after that one question. And uh, for some things, that's fine. Like, oh, how many, something like how many ounces in a gallon or something, things like that, that are very easy. That's fine. But when you're getting into more, who's behind this? Why are they behind it? Is this fabricated? Could it be fabricated? And, there is no how. How would this be done? Where are the examples of this being done before? Is there a precedent for this? When I go to certain things that I search on AI now, it knows certain things and it will automatically explain the how, why, when. And I still ask more questions anyways, because my view is, well, I don't really believe what it says. So I'm going to continue to look at other sources anyways. But the point being, this is why, of course, they're going to use it because nobody knows. Everybody thinks that, it's this problem of confirmation bias coming around. And then there's the whole AI psychosis or whatever that psychologists have been warning about too, which is a whole other problem. But yeah.
Hmm. Okay, so what we figured out in this whole video, which is a long one this time, is we listened to Kim's questions she had or her problems with it, and then we agreed or disagreed or with the subject matter she brought up. We discussed the bullet, where it is, where it could be, the the whole thing with him running across the roof, apparently partially missing his shadow, jumping down, and then the weapon supposedly in a towel, although it didn't look like a towel, but okay, to me it looked more like a vinyl or a polyester type thing, but whatever. Um, we didn't get into the part about them doing the video of the kid going across this in the neighborhood with the maroon shirt and the shorts and the white socks and white shoes, And then later, supposedly, he's in this all dark jeans and black t-shirt. And of course, the video where he's jumping off the roof or coming down the roof, it just looks like all black because you can't really tell what color the jeans are. But at the same time, then you see him later, supposedly walking again in that same neighborhood, limping. And they were saying, oh, he shoved that but huge, gigantic rifle down his pant leg, which is it's just dumb if anybody actually believes that, because he's still bending his knee. He's not,
Well,
there's just no
I
way you could fit that in there, as Kim had said.
now I don't know much about guns, but and I know sometimes you can put on the safety and stuff like that, but I'd be worried about blasting my leg off or something, you know?
Oh, it'd be too long. It'd be down to like his mid thigh, mid
Well,
shin.
I know that, but I'm just wondering, like, was there no concern of the gun misfiring and shooting his foot or something? I don't know. I mean, I'm just
But the whole thing, and first off, again, we don't know if that was even Tyler to begin with in the shorts and the shoes and all that. We don't know it was him in the black outfit on the way back, and he did have a backpack on that one. So he had a backpack, and you said it could be him from falling so many feet from the roof. That could have been a limp. Who knows?
yeah, who
But we don't
knows?
even know if that's him. So
Yeah, I mean, I'm inclined to believe that. I don't think there's enough evidence to even suggest that Tyler is even really the one that shot. I don't even know if the man was even involved at all.
yeah.
Maybe he was involved in some sense of maybe, you know, helping the shooter, maybe, but him actually doing the shooting, I'm very skeptical of.
Even though he's shown with all the guns, his family members are really into guns. Oh, I actually, somebody told me that, a friend of mine said, oh, well, he's supposed to have been really good with guns. Well, I don't know. I find that as it is put there for us to see and say, see, look, they're gun owner. Well, there's a lot of gun owners and they don't go out and shoot people. And to be that much of a professional at it, I don't know. But anyway, we've got to wrap this up because it's getting late here, and this we've gone on for so long. So, um,
Indeed.
if anything else comes up and we need to discuss it, if they're actually still doing anything that'll put forth anything, that's another thing. If they don't put forth anything, open closed case, open shut close, whatever that is, case like they did with the Butler PA one, you know.
I don't know. I feel at this point, I don't, I, for, like I said, I feel like there's a big piece of the puzzle missing. There's lots of little pieces missing. And my whole view is I'm really not even really wanting to revisit this until there's actual real addressing of a real investigation, basically, because
Yeah,
right now
well.
I don't feel there's a real investigation. So I'm kind of like, well, I'm about ready to move on.
Well,
Or,
yes, well, that's not the pattern of
yes,
these type of cases. They just shove it under the rug and then it's done. So
yeah.
anyway,
So,
thanks for joining me, Nico. It was great to
mhm,
get your thoughts on this. Lots of interesting information,
mhm,
and I appreciate all your contribution to that because it's a lot of information from a different point of view
mhm.
and other views that we shared. So. Anyway, I hope you all got something out of this. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks so much for following my channel. Share this if you think it's worth sharing, that kind of thing. Like it if you like it. And I hope you all have a great evening. Until next time.